Hey, it's JUCK.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
Hey, welcome to JUCK on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me on a Thursday night. You guys thought you got me there for a second there. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some Buckeyes. We're going to talk some college football. We've gone over a big change already in the new rules. Will Ohio State take advantage? Who should they go after if they do? I've got 10 names. I'd love to see them either circle back or go lock down, and that includes a couple of new prospects Ohio State has not offered yet. Additionally, you can go ahead and call me Big Ten Juck today, just for today, because I am furious with the SEC currently, trying to have their cake and eat it too. What's the holdup to the SEC going to 9 stupid games and the playoff compromise that we're going to get into it. We'll get into it, but we'll get to your super chats, get to your questions. If you have any, wait till I'm done. I usually get to the comments section after I'm done with my segments for about 5 or 10 minutes. Or really, however, if you guys want to talk, but save it for the end or else I'll miss it. I don't have anybody starring my comments. At some point, maybe we'll get an intern for these live shows that can star the comments that they want me to hit back on at the end. And we'll go about it that way. But as of now, you'll have to wait till the end. But if you want me, wait till then. But our friend Emily asked me the other day, is it even worth following recruiting anymore? I mean, I guess it depends why you're following. To me, the class of 2026 has been the most entertaining recruiting cycle I've ever had in my life. And it's about to get even more so with the rules changing right in the middle of it. And I absolutely love it. I would love it more if the team I love wasn't involved in it and I could kind of watch it without the emotion attached, but I can't do that. December is a long way away. Those are the dreaded words. Whenever you hear a coach say December is a long way away, it's generally because things aren't going so hot. You hear it from Justin Fry kind of type guys. We have now heard it from Ryan Day, and I never expected to hear it from him. He said it last week. And while it is true, December is currently a long way away. December signing day is what he's referencing. That doesn't mean what it used to mean. You used to have guys who would come in for their official visits during the season, take their time, make their decisions after that. And the calendar has drastically changed. All that stuff is done in June now, and a much larger percentage of guys are committed at this time than they used to be. And as far as flips, obviously those can come before December, but schools have been paying these kids to lock them in and force them to have a very difficult time flipping. Obviously, if you or I were making a contract for a kid who is joining our class, we would want to make it as difficult as possible for them to get out of it. And if they've been taking money, potentially spending money, and they got to pay the money back before they get out, there's some rules being fudged to keep them locked in. So December being a long way away has never carried less weight, and I'll prove it. Check this out. 24/7's internal rankings, the top 247, they only rank 247 kids. Now, what percentage at this point in the class do you think of the top 247 are currently committed to a school? Now, I saw that on a headline, and before I read any further, I forced myself to guess. My guess was 75, 80% already committed. And the answer, you got one? 93%. 93% of the top 247 prospects are already committed. That's wild. Of course, the Buckeyes have been given a little bit of a reprieve here. They've followed the rules. They did things the right way. Many other schools did things like them and did it the right way. And then the CSC, the House Settlement Enforcement Wing, didn't have the back of the schools that were doing it the right way and following the rules. They drew a line in the sand. They said, no, collectives cannot pay players directly. And that was the correct stance by the terms of the settlement, the way that it read and the spirit behind all of it. The House lawyers contested this because their job is to get the players as much money as possible. So, of course, they were going to contest it. And this was the first conflict that they have had as to how these things would be interpreted. And the very first time the CSC cowered and said, okay, collectives can now pay directly. Now, the deals for all Division I athletes still have to pass the clearinghouse, but all the schools that were doing it wrong, doing it the way we knew it shouldn't have been done from the beginning, well, they all have a head start. They were manufacturing gigs or appearances or social media posts and advertisements as ways to funnel money from collectives to players, as a way to sit down with a kid and guarantee them future NIL earnings. And Ohio State wasn't doing that. Ohio State wasn't doing that because you can't the way it's written. Well, you can now. And for those who haven't followed closely, this has nothing to do with the salary cap of $20.5 million. That remains. This is all about money up and above that, NIL money. And the most recent decision means that essentially the NIL floodgates are now officially back open, so long as you can get creative and smart enough to figure out ways to get these deals past the clearinghouse. And the big question for an Ohio State fan who follows recruiting is, will Ross Bjork in Ohio State operate in the way that everybody else has been operating now, which is within the rules, and offer these NIL deals? In the past few years, when it comes to Ohio State and recruiting, what have we always heard when we talk about a big name prospect? Ohio State, not going to be the highest offer, but they're going to be competitive. That was orders from headquarters. That was the line. We heard it over and over again. And when they said that, it was generally playing out like, let's say, a top-end Ohio State recruit, not a top 5 guy, maybe a top 10 guy. The deal would look something like Ohio State, $285,000, and a competitor, $450,000. A gap like that, a gap that you could potentially make up at Ohio State just in real NIL deals. This cycle, things looked a little different. This cycle, it was more like a top Ohio State recruit, top 10-ish guy, top 5-ish guy, $300,000. Competition, like $800,000. A massive gap. And I don't care how much everybody gets angry when, you got your crowd, Ohio State misses out on a guy. You got your crowd that gets mad. You got your other crowd that says, I only want guys that want to be Buckeyes. And the truth is, there are plenty of people who very much might want to be a Buckeye. But when the difference is $500,000, they got parents and agents and people guiding them saying, look, Junior, as we adults tend to do when it comes to money, we have no idea what the future holds for you. But I could tell you this, we could pretend that $500,000 difference never existed, invest it for you, and at 48, you're going to have millions of dollars. That's the difference between those two offers when you want to look at it that way. And that's just year one. And I would have loved nothing more than coming out of high school to have been recruited by Ohio State and had the option to do that. But if my mom and dad put it to me like that, and maybe there was some pressure about it, or maybe there was some family pressure, things may have been different, and I still would have wanted to be a Buckeye, even if I was suiting up at USC. Ugh, you get my point. But it felt like this cycle, that in this restricted system, the market went up. Ohio State wasn't expecting it. Had they been expecting it, might they have gone about things a little bit differently when it comes to selecting their targets? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of the big dogs they were recruiting, they've been in on for over a year. And you really don't get the sense until you get closer to official visit season. And we can kind of start seeing which one of these recruitments are going to turn out being big NIL recruitments, ones that are going to come down to the wire with big deals getting thrown around. And Ohio State has always tried to avoid these ones. The problem is they're becoming harder and harder to avoid. Now, I don't fault any of these kids a lick. The truth is there are a lot of great options of where to play college football. And if you have 2-3 places that you really love that feel the same and you're having a tough decision like a lot of these kids do, it certainly makes the most sense to me to say, all right, I'll let the money be the tiebreaker. And Ohio State, of course, goes after the best kids in the country. And so the programs who are also going after the best kids in the country are going to be the ones who are playing outside the rules because they've got an advantage and they're taking a big swing. And we certainly went up against those kids or those schools making NIL promises when Ohio State couldn't. They were paying directly from collectives, and we know who they were this cycle. That changes from cycle to cycle. But this year, USC, Texas A&M, maybe a couple others. In addition to that, Ohio State was also going up against the normal powers they go up against, Georgia, Alabama, who were, for the most part, playing it similarly to Ohio State. So with that being the case, when we look at the class of 2026, they've actually done a hell of a job. They did a hell of a job playing from a disadvantage. There are some real studs in the class of 2026. They've also done some great evaluations, and the state of Ohio produced some great players as well. But now Ohio State no longer at that disadvantage unless they choose to be. Now, I fully understand the position they were in, and I know a lot of you disagree, but I agree that they should have attempted to do things the right way here. They should have allowed the rules to try. They should have given it a shot, and they did. And even if that meant 2026 ended up being a kind of hold on to your seat class, I was okay with it. I was okay with it because I really hoped that this would have all worked. And they're just a little bit behind if it's just 1 year. But they don't have to wait anymore. While they are a little behind on the timeline, they can now guarantee NIL deals just like everybody else. The question is, will they? Now, as much as we hate losses in recruiting, the staff hates them more. Can you imagine spending 2 years recruiting a kid, knowing that you would have won if you had the same support that your opponent at USC did? I mean, it's a kick in the gut, man. That's got to be awful. And we don't need to like the system in the direction it's going when it comes to paying incoming freshmen. There was a misconception amongst Ohio State fans that this wasn't the case, that only the Jeremiah Smiths and Devin Sanchez were getting paid. They were all getting paid NIL last cycle. They're getting paid revenue share now. But the truth is, this has changed, and it's changed fast annually. And the amount of kids who are represented by agents just a few years ago was roughly 40%. Now it's close to 90%. So no, you don't want to pay for unproven kids. Nobody does. You also don't want to bring in lesser talent. And finding guys that aren't playing this game coming out of high school like young professional free agents is becoming more and more difficult. And at some point, you just need to meet the market where the market is. You're still going to get a discount because of everything else you have to offer. The culture, the market, the wins, the NFL, everything else you got to offer. But now you got the NIL and the rev share, and it's got to be there. And the question is, are we going to see some changes in this class? Ohio State has made 6 playoffs, 6 out of 11, 10 of those being 4-team playoffs. They didn't do it off the backs of classes leaking outside the top 10. They did it as a top 5 recruiting program. And for the transfer portal can fix everything crowd, we now got buyouts attached to those transfer portal kids. Those hit the cap. The buyout hits the cap, and then what Ohio State pays hits the cap too. It's a double whammy for every kid you sign out of the portal if they're under contract at another school when they leave. In addition to that, a 4- and 5-star high school recruit get drafted at a considerably higher level than a 4- or 5-star portal recruit. We use the portal to supplement, not to build the team. So what is the next step for the Buckeyes? Now that the new ruling has come out, are they going to get a little more creative with the NIL deals? Are they going to get back competitive with some of the top tier top tier guys that they were in on that potentially got away because of money? It's fully up for them if they want to do so. Many people that were bashing Ross Bjork from the beginning for getting behind this thing, which again, wasn't me. I share the view that I want the rules, but a lot of these people didn't want the rules at all. Well, the rules have been changed. And the question is he going to allow them to operate like everybody else is operating right now? Or is he going to let the fact that he has dug in on this and chosen to be part of this skew the way he operates here? Because he chose to be involved with this settlement. And if he doesn't allow Ohio State to operate the way their opponents are operating, he's going to be hurting Ohio State football in favor of what he thinks is the greater good of college football. That's not going to go good with Ohio State supporters. That's not going to go well, man. So the last interview he gave was to Tom Orr at Buckeye Huddle. And he gave this interview at Big Ten Media Days, literally as the news was breaking that the CSC, his group, the guys that he was supporting, were telling everybody, we don't have guys like Bjork's back. I want you to listen to the interview as he was giving it. This is as that news was breaking.
in April, then you'd have April, May, June to ramp up, approved on June 6th, ramp up by July 1st. It's just not practical. So, look, no one thought this would be perfect early on. Look, we have an aggressive approach. We're maxing out. We have the third-party NIL environment, Buckeyes Sports Group. If people are choosing not to follow the framework, then I think eventually that'll come back to really cost them. And so, look, we're being aggressive, but we also want to be clear with athletes. If we make a promise or we commit to something, we want that to be real. And I think everybody that we talk to the last 5 years has said, we want rules, we want enforcement, we want clarity. We can't just give up in 22 days, in this new world. And so, look, I think slow and steady, but aggressive will win the race. And so as we get rules published, as people understand what enforcement looks like, Ohio State's always going to be on the right side of the equation. And so no one's going to panic at Ohio State. We're the Buckeyes, and we're going to have a strong brand no matter, really what the model is. But everybody's got to follow the rules.
Everybody's got to follow the rules. Therein lies the problem. He seemed a little discouraged right there. Being slow and being aggressive are not really the same thing. In addition, maxing out rev share and having NIL opportunities also not being aggressive, that's the baseline for a top program. That's not aggressive. He says he's not going to panic. I know a lot of Buckeye fans who are. And it's not time to panic, but it is time to pivot because everybody didn't follow the rules. And now the rules are changed. I'm a little worried he's going to be digging himself in deeper and deeper on this. And when the news first broke, my immediate thought was, all right, here we go. We're back in business. Then it kind of slapped me in the face. What if he still says, no, we're sticking with my original plan? It's going to put us further back because other schools who were following the rules like Ohio State, they're now saying, okay, we're pivoting. Is Ross going to pivot? That's the decision. And we're going to find out. He doesn't need to tell us. We'll know by the results. So let's say he does say, okay, we are going to pivot. We're going to start guaranteeing some NIL deals. We're going to be aggressive. What aggressive really means. And if that's the case, I think we're going to be amazed at the results here. I don't think there's going to be a ton of flips, but there will be some. We're going to see some more coming because we are going to see some more schools getting involved in this. And when we look at the guys on the board, there are definitely some guys out there that Ohio State has had that have visited that are still out there for them to get. There are some guys that Ohio State has not offered yet that I think Ohio State should probably go check out. And I wanted to go through kind of position by position tonight and just see where we're at with the class, who's in the class, and who is potentially out there that the Buckeyes could go kick the tires on or maybe bring in, or somebody who might be a new offer. And let's start where it all starts with the offensive line. Now, the offensive tackle, this is wild, man. So 16 offensive tackle offers this cycle and 18 interior offensive line. So 16 tackles, 18 interior offensive linemen. Out of all those offers, there are only 3 guys that are uncommitted. Like, that is so crazy. And again, to the point of December a long way away. I mean, not really. So currently in the class, you got a 4-man offensive line class that I love. 5-star Sam Greer. I can officially now say that. Top 100 Max Riley, Aaron Thomas, Tucker Smith, 2 3-star, really good looking prospects that can, potentially develop into something good, but 2 tackle bodies, 2 interior guys. Now, obviously Darius Gray stands out. Darius Gray, a guy who has visited, also took 8 official visits. He's still not committed. 5-star interior offensive lineman, a great football player. I think a top 10 pound for pound football player in the entire class. A great kid. And he has kind of whittled it down now to Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Whittled it down to 5. He was going to make his decision well into the season, but he's decided now that potentially 50-50, it could come before the season. Really high on LSU and South Carolina right now. Tennessee pushing. Could the Buckeyes potentially come in and re-energize this? I don't know, but I'll be honest. I've talked to Darius plenty over the last year since before he got offered by Ohio State. I don't think NIL is a huge factor for this kid. I really don't. So I don't know if that's going to help much at all, but I know he really likes Ohio State. He doesn't love the distance, I don't think. And again, he is an interior offensive lineman. When we look at this class right now, I don't know that it's a big necessity, but there is another that came up for a visit that I thought we were making some movement on, and he's kind of cut us off his list right now. But Brett Kolejay, if you guys remember him, we played his film, IMG kid, but he's originally from Colorado, so he's not a South kid. Top 300 overall kid, another interior guy. And he came up for his official visit. That was just the second time he had come up. He came up during the spring, then he came up for his official, and there wasn't much movement with him until that official, and then it was strong. But it didn't feel like it had staying power. And sure enough, it didn't end up having staying power. And kind of right now, it's Miami and Georgia, kind of 1A and 1B. Again, the Buckeyes aren't going to be investing a ton of money on the interior of the offensive line at this point, but might be worth checking out Breck and seeing if they can do a little something there. And now we've got our decision coming from a guy who is into the Buckeyes, also Florida State and Auburn, and that's Duron Parks. Duron Parks is a top 400 lineman. He is from Hurricane, West Virginia, 6'4", 360 pounds. Some folks worried about his discipline because of his weight. I'm not particularly worried about that myself. I feel like anybody who has the prerequisite size and tools comes into Ohio State and works with the Ohio State strength and conditioning program, they're going to get him right. So it doesn't really stress me out. But when we look at this kid, we're talking ballerina feet for a 360 pounder. Wait till you see him move. Not really a good highlight there. I think I got another one from his most recent year. Yeah, this one's not really showing us what I need to show you. But you can see the aggression here. And he's going to be making his decision at the end of this week. Look at the size at left tackle there. Look at that. He's just a monster, a mammoth of a man. So we will find out at the end of this week what Duron Parks thinks. So maybe forget about Darius Gray, forget about Kolejay, and just make sure you lock down Parks. Obviously, you're going against Florida State and Auburn. They're going to pay him more. He's worth more to them. He's more valuable to them. They're not doing great this cycle. Auburn in particular is doing horrible this cycle. But if you can get Parks, make it a 5-man offensive line class, I think things look great. I love that class. Still curious when we talk about Ohio as to whether or not they might want to take a hard look at Ben Congdon, who is now a top 300 kid from Tuscarawas Valley, 6'8". He's just a huge tackle body, committed to Miami. And that would be something I'd love to see the Buckeyes flip him back home. But, only if they think that he's a guy that they want. Currently, they haven't offered him. So maybe they're waiting to watch some film from his senior year and see if they want to take a swing. Let's go to tight end. Keenan Bailey found a guy he loves in Corbin Fordham, a 3-star kid that's pretty much off the beaten path. And he elected to go after that 3-star kid over 2 Ohio tight ends, one of whom went to Georgia and one went to Notre Dame. And that says something. He's all the way bought in on this kid. And the fact that he's all the way bought in on him makes me feel really good about him too. I also like his film a lot, and he's a great kid and loves being a Buckeye. I don't think it's worth spinning back and trying to check out Max Sutter. He got a huge deal from Alabama. Lincoln Keys, not really. I don't think you need to do anything at tight end. You just brought in the class of 2025, Nate Roberts and Brody Lennon. I think you just put all your energy into 2027 with Brock Williams, Jackson Dollar, Anthony Cartwright, D'Angelo White. There is a great group of tight ends Ohio State's in 2027. D'Angelo White, super freak out of St. Joe's in Cleveland. Brock Williams, the number 2 tight end overall out of Illinois, really likes Ohio State, currently at the top of his list with Oregon. And Brady Edmonds, the superstar quarterback, really getting in tight with Brock. You've also got Jackson Dollar out of North Carolina. Now, he's now the number 3 tight end in the class, 6'5", 210, plays both ways, stud defensive end as well. The most important thing, his uncle is a JUCK. It's pretty interesting because his uncle Rome, you guys might have seen him around the boards. He's been sending me his updates and his stuff, and I just kind of watch him get better and better and climb up the boards, get his first big offer. It's been really cool. Now the dude's a Buckeye offer, number 3 tight end in the class. So that would be really cool. Now, is there any interest in potentially bringing in another running back in 2026? In 2025, you brought in a 3-man class with Bo, Turbo, and Isaiah, and favor Aki in 26. Now, I don't think that this is something I would get into. You don't need a number, so you're not just going to go after a guy to get a guy. You went after your 2 top targets. You went after Derek Cooper. You went after Savion Hyder. Derek Cooper now committed to Texas. By the way, I might have mentioned this on the show, but a lot of people were making fun of him because he took 1 visit to Texas. They weren't even in his top 4 a couple of weeks ago. He had taken 1 unofficial visit to Texas, and he ends up committing to Texas. And people were kind of ragging on him. Oh, he obviously took the bag, whatever. And I don't know why there's any shame in this anymore. It's relatively normal. But his mom was apparently unhappy with that. She tweeted last night a picture with her and Sark, basically saying, like, it only takes 1 visit to know real recognizes real. Like, all right, we get it. If that was the case, he'd have made your top 4. But anyway, I don't understand the sensitivity. But obviously, the Bucs don't get Cooper. When we talk about Savion Hyder, even if Ohio State upped his offer, they're not coming close to Michigan's or Tennessee's. So I don't really see any reason to do anything other than take any money you're planning on spending at running back and putting it towards 2027 in DGG. David Gabriel George is the best running back in 27 and 26, in my opinion. He loves Ohio State. I talked to his source the other day, told me Carlos Loughlin can't really talk about any other back in 2027. It's all about David Gabriel George. He is the number 1 or number 2 back in the class per the rankings. He's a can't miss prospect. And I really like the idea of staggering out, now that you're working with the salary cap, Bo Jackson, who I think is an electric top tier back, then favor Aki, who's a really good prospect, but not quite that ceiling. And then David Gabriel George. The guys that are going to cost you a little more money, stagger that out, keep the room strong. It seems to me like they got the right strategy here, and I don't think they're going to go after another back. Wide receiver, no, that's not going to be necessary. But 24/7 did rank their top 10 recruiters at this point in the cycle. Brian Hartline, just number 4. There are 3 USC coaches in the top 10. Give me a break, man. People got some nerves about Caden Dixon-Wyatt. Oregon, USC coming hard, obviously trying to use the 5-man class, loaded wide receiver room to entice him along with some extra benefits. It just seems to me like when a guy has chosen at this point in the cycle to commit to Ohio State, to commit to Hartline, he already knows the drawbacks. He knows he's not going to play early, most likely. And he understands, and he's got his priorities, and his priorities are, I want to be developed by that guy and be a part of the single most elite, well-paid position room in all of college football. So I'm not particularly concerned about it. Even if he does flip out of the class, I'm not particularly concerned about it. That's just not a position I ever worry about at Ohio State, which moves us over to the defensive side of the ball. And we will start on the defensive line with Deuce Geralds, who has not committed. And Deuce, I love Deuce. If you've been watching any amount of time, you know that. I've been raving about the kid forever. Seemingly down now to Oregon and Michigan. And they have spent, the Buckeyes, meaning the Buckeyes have spent a ton of time recruiting Deuce since he was like 9th grade. There is a BS narrative out there that Matt Patricia doesn't want him because of his size. It's absolutely not true. And we know he loves Ohio State. We know that his other offers have gotten ridiculous. We're talking like, just under $1 million. And this could be an opportunity for Ohio State to come back to the table, let him know, look, we weren't lowballing you. We were going by rules, and these guys aren't. We can open up some more money. And you're going to have a better supporting cast here. And with those, look, that smile, those eyebrows, you're going to have all the deals you can want through Learfield in Columbus, Ohio. Everybody's going to love you. It's worth a shot. I would certainly love to add him. Emmanuel Ruffin out of Alabama. Was it Alabaster, Alabama? I love that name, Alabaster. Emmanuel Ruffin is a guy, this poor guy. He announced that he was down to Ohio State and LSU. And at that point, when he announced him, neither Ohio State nor LSU was going to take him. So he had to postpone his announcement. And I don't know why the Buckeyes chose Cam Brickell over him. Ruffin, a little bit of a bigger guy. They moved about the same, but they chose to go with Cam Brickell. So I don't see that happening. But of the 20 defensive tackles Ohio State's offered, just 2 of them uncommitted, and it's those 2. Let's go out to edge, where the Bucks got Kari Wilder. Absolute beast, borderline 5-star now. And if I'm the Buckeyes, I am finding a way to get him a raise immediately to show my gratitude that for his hard work and choosing Ohio State, no muss, no fuss. And before anybody comes in with some stupid offer for a kid who just has been destroying everybody and might finish a 5-star in the cycle, I'm paying him now to buy his loyalty right now. You offer 23 edges in this cycle. There is only 1 who is not committed. Can you believe that? 44 total defensive linemen. 3 of them remain uncommitted. That's just crazy. And the one edge that's not committed is Jake Krull from IMG, who the Buckeyes aren't really interested in, much to the dismay of many Buckeye fans, I know, but he's kind of a tweener. They don't believe he's athletic enough to play off ball. They don't believe he's big enough to play on ball. That being the case, I don't know why you went through all the rigmarole and scheduling an official, but whatever. Carter Meadows, that's not happening. He's not flipping. The Buckeyes aren't coming close to $1 million offer. Same with Luke Waffle at USC. How about the Duncanville kids? KJ Ford burned you for Florida. Landon Barnes is teammate for Ole Miss. Now here's the deal. We got to remember, keep in mind, the Bucks aren't coming in with a bigger offer than any of these schools. What they're trying to work is, if we've got a better relationship, we're going to close the gap a little bit. That's the strategy. I don't think those relationships exist with either of those Duncanville kids who didn't come up till the spring game for the first time, and then they both came up for one official visit. So that relationship isn't really there. But what they could do is potentially get North Carolina back for stealing Weatherspoon and spin it back on Xavier Griffin Haynes. This is a dude we were in on early. He was one of the very first guys that was a name that we were going to really pursue in this class. And he's massive at 6'5.5", 220. His film is a guy, yeah, he needs some development for sure, but a very solid prospect. And then they kind of just backed off of him. He wanted to commit. They weren't ready for all that. That was very early. And might it be worth kicking the tires on him? I'll tell you, I'd take him in a heartbeat. Jackson Ford at Penn State, they seem to want him as a hybrid. And I think that's more of a kind of a luxury spot that they don't really need at this point. But there is a guy that they have not offered yet. His name is Whitey Collier, and he is a Rutgers commit, believe it or not. A Rutgers commit. He is an edge rusher. He is 6'6", 215, and he is now a top 100 player and a top 15 edge. And I mean, this is a unique prospect right here. Incredibly long, and he just catapulted up the rankings when people started taking notice of this dude. And poor Rutgers is sitting here with this amazing prospect in their class, and now everybody knows who he is. The Bucks planning on taking a look at him for his senior year, seeing what happens, seeing how he looks on film, and then deciding whether or not they want to pursue. I would pursue sight unseen and get him in immediately. That's how bad you need that type of body at edge. Just go get the kid. Let's move to linebacker. How about Laurinaitis? James has been awesome. Out of the 20 linebackers he's offered, there are still 4 of them that have not yet committed. A couple of them at the very bottom that I don't ever think he really wanted too bad. As far as guys that have committed that he was in on heavy, I don't think there is any flip opportunities, certainly not with ATK and up, Tyler Atkinson or Xavier Griffin, who committed to Bama. Now, he has been working on Elijah Littlejohn. Elijah Littlejohn is a Penn State commit. And I think it would be really cool to have Elijah Littlejohn next to Riley Pettijohn. That would be pretty sweet to see out there. 6'1.5", 215. I'm not horribly impressed by his film, but James is. But there is some smoke. There has been some smoke here. Now you got the opportunity to really work him off of that if you want to. And the reason that you want an extra linebacker in this class is as we look at this next year, I don't know about you, I think Arvell Reese is about to take the Big Ten by storm, and it's going to be Peyton Pierce, Garrett Stover, Riley Pettijohn, TJ Alford, Eli Lee, CJ Sana, and Sincere Johnson. That's 7. You'd like to have at least 8. Of course, you can supplement that in the portal, no problem. But I like the idea of the flip from Penn State. I think that'd be pretty cool. And that brings us to cornerback, guys. You've heard the numbers I've been saying here as we've gone through these positions. 20 linebackers, 20 edges, 20 interior offensive linemen, 20 tackles, etc. 11 cornerbacks were offered this cycle. And that's just it. We talk about Walt not hitting his numbers. I just don't get it, man. I don't get it. 11 offers. It's like a Justin Fry on the cornerback, but also 5 stars mixed in. It's crazy. Now, one of the highest rated guys still out there, Davon Benjamin, and he is the only one that's not yet committed out of the 11 that he's offered. But he's a West Coaster. He's going to stay out there. Oregon, most likely, maybe USC. I don't think there's an opportunity there. When you look at the guys that have committed elsewhere, I guess the first thing is to look at the hometown guys. You look at Rock, you look at Vic. Vic Singleton started off by committing to Illinois, now Texas A&M. He was never really interested in Ohio State, and Ohio State was never seriously pursuing him. Don't know why. Thought it would have been great, but clearly not that type of local kid that cares. He's a Toledo kid. You know what I'm saying? Now, Rock, a different story. That's an Akron kid. He really loves Ohio State. Ohio State's in his heart. Unfortunately, he's all in on USC now. There's no opportunity there. How about Justice Fitzpatrick? That was moving in a positive direction. Justice Fitzpatrick out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida. He's awesome. And he just committed to Georgia out of the blue, committed to Kirby where his brother played. So I don't think there's any opportunity to get back in on that one. But what about Danny Odom? You just lost Danny Odom to Nebraska. In Nebraska, from what I heard, a huge offer to Danny Odom to secure him. And you can see why. I mean, 247 has him as a top 100 player. This would have been great to pair him with Jordan Thomas. Does this open the door for the Buckeyes to get back in? Well, my thought was absolutely. There's no way they're not getting back in and at least trying. They probably were already. Well, Danny Odom just gave an interview this morning. And according to Danny, he's got 3 schools pursuing him, trying to flip him. Ohio State, not one of those 3 schools. Doesn't mean they won't, but let's go. Let's go. Let's go get Odom. It's time, man. Another potential defensive lineman I did not mention, Carter Gooden. I really like this kid. He committed about 2 weeks ago to UCLA, but there was a little buzz about him before, and I would sure like to see them pursue him. So to review, offensive line, Duron Parks, Brett Collegier, Darius Gray, maybe Ben Congdon. At edge, Whitey Collier, that's the Rutgers commit. Kick the tires on Griffin Haynes, maybe, if they're still interested in him. Carter Gooden, Deuce Geralds, of course, has not made his decision yet. Maybe see if you can work a little something with him. Cornerback Danny Odom is committed to Nebraska. And finally, obviously, Braylon Womack. Braylon Womack at safety. You're sitting with your safety class with Blaine Bradford, with Simeon Caldwell. But Braylon Womack was always the tops of the tops. That was the guy everybody wanted. That was the guy that, he's the dude. He's the dude. Currently, he's still down to 4 teams, but Texas A&M and Florida are kind of a distant 3 and 4 at this point. And it's now Ohio State, Auburn. And Auburn having a terrible class, but Mississippi, Alabama. His sister goes there. She plays softball, but they didn't grow up Alabama fans. His sister just transferred there. It's not like there's some huge tie other than his sister does go there. Auburn has said, basically, they're insiders, that they will not be beaten for an NIL offer. Like, they're going to pay him whatever they need to pay him. And whatever, Ohio State was never going to pay him the most anyway, so that doesn't matter. But do they now have the opportunity to bridge the gap maybe a little more? They absolutely do. And they better. They just better. This kid has always wanted to come to Ohio State. You cannot let money get in the way of getting him to Ohio State. That's the way I look at this. If you miss on him at this point, big fail. Big fail, so it's got to happen. Take care of that one. That kid wants to be a Buckeye. Make him a Buckeye. So that's what we got, guys, as far as guys that we should go check out. Will we see the Buckeyes do it? Will Ross Bjork allow the crew to go after it in a little more aggressive fashion? We'll find out soon. Part of me is scared. Part of me is scared that he's going to dig his heels in and say, no. We got to do what's right, how this was written. It's not even the rules anymore, man. I don't know, man. The guy is, he's really dug in on this. Part of me thinks like he should not have been involved in this at all. Like, you shouldn't have been involved in this, because now you're making decisions. There's a conflict of interest here. He's making decisions for the good of college football, which might not align with the good of Ohio State football. You know what I mean? Those things they're not always going to be the same thing. So I don't really like it. I really don't. But let's take a minute here and please love the show. Please subscribe to the show if you have not. Subscribing to the show, that's currency for those of us behind these microphones. So we got to do that for all the shows that we like, not just Juck on Bucks. That's how YouTube and advertisers know that this is one of the shows that everybody likes. Now, coming up very soon, there is a new recruiting show coming up to the Ohio State ethos, the YouTube sphere, that I will be hosting. I will be hosting that show with a longtime Ohio State recruiting veteran who is extremely well-sourced from the inside. Now, I do a pretty good job on my recruiting shows, introducing people to new prospects, keeping you up on the movement, where they're going, who they're visiting, showing highlights, talent evaluations, giving my opinions, talking about different philosophies that different programs have. But I'm still a rookie at all this. I'm still developing reliable sources. With me quarterbacking this show, getting the most out of my co-host, I am pretty certain that this one is going to be one you guys really like. But that show won't be on this channel, as we have a bit of a shakeup coming around here at Juck on Bucks. There will, of course, still be a ton of content here on the Juck on Bucks channel, but I will be doing a couple of different things here. Can't give away all the details now, but they will be coming pretty soon. But that recruiting show, going to be fire, going to be weekly, and you're all going to love it. Now, I want to take a minute and talk about the SEC and the Big Ten in the playoff talk and where this debate currently stands after Big Ten Media Days. As Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, a former TV guy, wouldn't you imagine a TV guy would be good at delivering a message? A TV guy. He said a few things that I want to hit on that I didn't get to on yesterday's show. Now, I got some pushback from Big Ten homers, which is not uncommon on my channel to have Big Ten homers give me some pushback because they know I'm not. And for some reason that bothers them. I don't know why. We share what we love in common, right? And that's the love for the Buckeyes. We share that in common. I don't need to share love for the Big Ten with you. They're not loyal to me. I'm not loyal to them. But I got some pushback anyway. Now, there is no denying that the Big Ten Conference is better than ever, and Tony Petitti is currently the commissioner. Therefore, do we give him mad props for that? Well, Kevin Warren brought in USC and UCLA. Tony Petitti brought in the other two. It was just the obvious next step. He's been on top or in charge with this massive Fox deal, so he deserves some credit for that, but it was in motion before his appointment. But if you're a fan of a Big Ten team, what Tony has done has seized power with the SEC, of college football. And he's essentially made it so we all know in the Big Ten that we're going to be good no matter where the college of football goes. And, no matter where things go with it, we're not in the ACC or the Big 12, who have allowed themselves to slowly lose power in members. And we don't have to worry about our future. Of course, if you're an Ohio State fan, you never had to anyway, but you get what I'm saying. However, when compared to Greg Sankey, Tony hides in a closet. The SEC and their mouths and their propaganda have absolutely dominated the conversation. At SEC Media Days, Greg Sankey put out their message and gave 25 interviews. Tony Petitti at Big Ten Media Days gave his address at the big podium, and that was it. I want to read you an opening line from an article I saw yesterday. Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti emerged from his hiding hole on Tuesday to defend his college football playoff format. That's how the people in the national media view this guy. Before Petitti went on the Joel Klatt show, you remember that spot he did, he was totally ignoring requests from the media about his playoff proposal. This is a commissioner of the Big Ten. The media is trying to get a hold of him to let them know, to ask questions about his playoff proposal, and he wasn't even returning their requests. That's the guy representing the conference. That blows my mind. He has a TV mindset and only a TV mindset. He's consistently bringing up pro leagues, and I'll give you an example. Steve Hellwagon of Bucknuts asked him this question the other day. I want you to listen to his response to Steve Hellwagon, and Steve brings up the debate that my issue with the 4-4-2-2-1-3 and the play-in games, the one issue I have with it is if you look back at last year, you had 11-1 Indiana, and they would have taken on 8-4 Iowa in that play-in game as the 3 versus the 6. And when they walk onto that field that day, Indiana's 11-1 body of work means nothing. They are now on equal footing with Iowa, meaning the winner advances, the loser goes home. Potentially to get an at-large bid, but you get the point. It seriously diminishes that body of work. And this is what Petitti has to say to that question that Hellwagon asked.
That you want to institute for the playoff. Last year it was pretty cut and dried that you had 4 top 10 teams that should be in the playoff. I guess the trade-off is those teams worked so hard to establish themselves after 12 or 13 games as top 10 teams. Why should they have to play Illinois or Iowa, just as examples, who had more league losses? I don't sense a clamor for a 4-loss team in a playoff. And doesn't that create a situation for the playoff, which we saw blowouts in the playoff last year, for more blowouts in the playoff, which drive down the ratings and make it less lucrative, perhaps, to put a team that doesn't deserve to be in the playoff?
Yeah, there's a lot there, so let me try to do it in order. So the first piece about the value of the playing games. First, I have to commend our coaches because they obviously talk about the same thing you just raised. Like, hey, if I'm in position, I could get hurt by losing a game. I think where our coaches came down and our ADs was that, at the end of the day, there are 18 members in the Big Ten. You have 17 available opponents. You play 9 of them. Right, so there's a lot of discrepancy, let alone making comparisons, across the leagues. There's a lot of issues about how you compare teams inside the Big Ten. Your schedule, just by the way it plays out, might be easier than people thought when it was made up. We obviously try to competitively balance our schedules, so there's an issue there. Like even within our own league, giving teams a chance. Where we came down is that we were willing to take that risk. If you had 16 teams, there's still a catch-all where there's potentially 3 at-larges. So in your example, if a 6 seed beat a 3. Could the 3 then go into a pool to get in? Maybe. But at the end of the day, I think our coaches are willing to take that risk because what they're thinking about it is not a snapshot of any one season. They're looking at how do we get more teams in contention. Look, as you expand the playoff, the rest of the bowl system and how we're trying to protect all of that, you're basically driving everybody to this one event. And it's just, I think in every league's interest, not just ours, to have more teams emerging, like Indiana did last year, giving more teams a chance to compete. And there's just huge value in having games across. Look, last year Ohio State was 7-2 and finished 4th in the Big Ten, right? Was undefeated in non-conference play. So, the idea that we can go deep, I feel pretty strongly about that. If you're 6-3 in the Big Ten, I would argue that's a great record. And if you stumbled in a non-conference game, I don't know why that disqualifies you. 8-4 is a winning percentage. If you project that winning percentage in every other sport, I'm pretty sure you make the post.
That last part right there is where I got a serious problem with this idiot. This is a guy who doesn't even know college football. 8-4, he's comparing it to another sport. He's saying that's a good record. Sure, it is a good record in any other sport. Do they play in the NFL 3 CFL teams on their schedule? Well, no. But we do in college football. We play 3 cream puffs, hopefully 2, sometimes 3, which means if you played 3 cream puffs, your record isn't 8-4. Your record's 5-4. That's your record. That's the other reason I hate these cream puff games, man. Because that 8-4 record is deceptive as hell from someone who doesn't know college football, which is clearly the Big Ten commissioner. Let's be honest. This guy isn't a football fan. He doesn't know college football at all. He's a baseball guy. He's a pencil pushing nerd. Now, that pissed me off. And I do not like that part of his plan. I do not like the play-in part. For that reason, that's why it's got to be the 4-4-2-2-3 and not the 4-4-2-2-1, because you do need that catch-all, in my opinion, but more so for out-of-conference games than that. But because of that, I'm willing to look over it. Now, this is the best part of that entire press conference. Stu Mandel, if you guys have been around a little while, you know this is my least favorite journalist in all of college football, Cincinnati Stu Ball, little Stewie. He's a Cincinnati guy who hates Ohio State, and Cincinnati Stu has been on a rampage about this playoff model over on The Athletic. Now, Stu wanted to check Tony Petitti. I want you to listen to the tone of his voice. I want you to listen to this right here. This is just hysterical.
Members.
On your far right. Stuart Mandel from The Athletic. Tony, when talking about CFP format, obviously you have a lot of constituents, coaches, ADs, and so on. The public, the fans, have indicated overwhelmingly they do not want a system where certain conferences get more bids than others. At what point, how much emphasis, if at all, do what the public want come into decisions like this?
Well, first, I'll take issue with the way you're phrasing that. I don't really know. I'm not aware of massive studies with real research that have demonstrated that.
It's not a scientific poll, but a poll I put on Twitter this morning.
This dude literally just came at him and said, fans overwhelmingly don't want this. It was a Twitter poll I did this morning. What a dweeb, man. What a self-important dweeb. I cannot stand that guy. Now, to be honest, it is a little disappointing that Tony doesn't have a rebuttal, that Tony and his crew have not gauged fan interest at all. You would think that that would be something that would at least interest them, right? Maybe it's not going to affect their decision. We know their decision's all going to be about money, but don't you think it would interest them? And the part about it that really irritates me is they didn't even educate people. They didn't stump for it. I have stumped for the plan of the 4-4-2-2-1-3. Josh Pate has stumped for the 4-4-2-2-1-1. Same with Joel Klatt. Like, I've heard more people that care about college football stumping for that as the superior plan for those of us who love college football than the actual commissioner who's pushing it or his office. They're hiding from the media. That is soft leadership. Soft leadership from Tony Petitti, man. But he does make a pretty comical point. He says a month ago, there was a college football playoff meeting on Zoom, and they're sitting here watching mathematicians break down ways to make the selection process easier. So Tony, he says, I'm sitting here watching this thing, and I'm sitting here thinking, wait a minute, they're doing all this, and this is the rational way, but playing games to get in is the irrational way. And of course, he's right. It does sound crazy when you put it like that. And that's why he's so dug in on the 4-4-2-2-3. And the Big Ten coaches appear to want it as well, at least the ones we heard from. And the SEC wants to stick with the 511, but they don't just want to stick with the 511. And here's where they irritate me. What they want is a new selection committee criteria by where they judge strength of schedule and strength of record. This, of course, will favor their teams, as they know. Their strength of schedule metrics are always way higher than everybody else's. Tony Petitti said he's not interested in changing that. Guess who is? The ACC and the Big 12 support the SEC. The ACC and the Big 12 are so dumb. Their strength of schedule record and metrics are always way below the Big 10 and the SEC, but they support this. These guys are wrong at every turn. What strength of schedule metric do we think the SEC is looking for? I'm going to guess they want a metric that you can run back simulations on 2024 and Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, one of them gets in. And if that happens, okay, that's the one we want. So we're at an impasse here. The Big Ten says, no, we don't want that. The SEC, like I said, wants to have their cake and eat it too. They don't want to compromise. They want to have a 5-11, but they want the format they want. And of course, they're using the 9th game as a bargaining chip. They're using the 9th game as the bargaining chip because their commissioner wants the 9th game. A lot of their ADs want the 9th game. Is it enough for Greg Sankey to add the 9th game if Petitti just caves and says, we'll do the 5-11, but we're not going to put that strength of schedule metric in there? Is that enough? Or will Sankey say no? I don't know yet, but we need these guys to add that stupid 9th game. And I don't fault them for not adding the 9th game until now. I don't at all. I don't call them soft for not adding the 9th game. The Big Ten is the one that changed from 8 games to 9 games. Less than a decade ago. This isn't some like 30-year thing. They did it less than 10 years ago because they wanted more money. And the SEC and the ACC said, yeah, we're not going to be doing that. And the Big Ten said, we're doing it anyway. Meaning what? I hear all the Big Ten fans talk about how disadvantaged the Big Ten is because they play 9 games and take 9 more losses. Guess who did that? Well, the Big Ten leadership did that to their own member institutions in the name of making more money. The SEC didn't do that to the Big Ten. But things are coming to a head now. Things are different now. And for the good of the sport, the SEC has to add this stupid game. And like I said, most of their athletic directors now want it. But Tony Sankey doesn't want to give away anything for free. So what is the deal going to be? Big Ten teams are currently canceling out of conference games and scheduling them with the likes of Kennesaw State. And if these guys don't add that 9th game, we're going to see more and more of that. If they do, we get to see the Big Ten SEC Challenge. If we see the Big Ten SEC Challenge, we're going to see a ton more great football, and we're going to get a bunch of crossover games between the Big Ten and the SEC so we can more accurately gauge how good these teams really are, no matter what format the postseason is. I can't wait for that. Now, they have till the end of December, the end of November, to decide on the playoff format in 2026. And if they don't make a decision, if they don't come to an agreement, we just roll in next year to the same 12-team format, which I don't think anybody's going to be irritated with, or you. I'm not. I'm good with it. I wouldn't mind if it stayed like that. But what I really want to hear is this damn 9th game. The 9th game preserves out a conference, puts things on an even playing field, and it's just time. It's just time for this to happen. Now, there's also a dispute over the transfer portal with the Big Ten and everybody else. As the Big Ten wants the transfer portal in April, everybody else wants it in January, and the Big Ten going to lose this one. Remember the SCORE Act that's in Congress now that we've talked about. This is the one that would codify into law the House settlement. This thing also would limit transfers to 1 free transfer unless there's extenuating circumstances, meaning your coach gets fired, etc. So you can take 1 transfer anytime you want. After that, unless there's extenuating circumstances, your next transfer, you're going to sit out a year like the old rules, which I love. Problem is the SCORE Act is now not looking so hot. There is mounting opposition in the Senate, and that opposition is now supported by major sports leagues, of every major players associations from every sports league. They got a couple senators who are making it their thing to rally against this. And despite it being introduced as a bipartisan bill, it is not going to get those 7 Democratic votes that it needs to get that supermajority in the Senate after it gets through the House. So that's the second part that Ross Bjork and his buddies need to codify this House settlement. It's slowly getting picked apart. And this is what Ross Bjork and his buddies were banking on. Now, I was rooting for this thing to work until their own CSC sold them out for the very first time. The very first time they drew a line. And now I'm out. They clearly don't believe in it themselves if they're not going to fight for what they believe in. So let it burn and on to the next thing, which is collective bargaining. And that, well, there's a bill that's just been introduced today. It's being brought to the House Committee for collective bargaining. So here we go. Let's just fast forward on to the next. And then, of course, we got the Trump letter that came out today. So the Trump letter, the Trump executive order comes out today. What is the Trump executive order? The Trump executive order, which, guys, I wish I had some more time to devour this, but I just saw it maybe 15 minutes before I came on the air. But essentially the way it reads to me is all it's doing is saying now it's a law. Basically what the rule is that we already have instituted in the House settlement, that a third party can't pay for play, which is what the new rules say. You can still have it fair market value, and that's what the clearinghouse is for. It's just that that's the law now. So it's also the rules of the CSC that you have to be operating that way, and it's going to be the law when Trump and his director of education get through with whatever this is. It doesn't have, there's not a lot to this thing. There's not a lot to it so far that I've seen. But I'll dig in on it further. And if I see anything else in there that's interesting, but I don't think that we've seen much detail from it yet. Ultimately, I think it's not anything that's going to be super important, but that's where we're at now. Like to remind everybody to please like the show as I will cruise over to our trusty comments section and say hello to you guys. My man, Don B. Yo, Juck, I got my EBT card today, so I'm going to the casino. First, want to say thank you for all your coverage of Ohio State. Don, you're the man. Adam Bachtel, what's up, bro? Where's the defensive line dude that was playing offensive line? I forgot his name. That's PJ Dean. PJ has committed to Georgia. And yeah, man, I really liked PJ. Adam, with another $2 and another $5, my man loading me up here. Adam says, Bjork seems like a car salesman to me. And I hear this all the time. He really does have that vibe to him. He's got the salesman vibe, insurance, used cars, whatever. Yeah, he does. He does have that, no doubt. Petitti and Bjork work together at Wolverine's Used Cars. That's great. That's great. Doreen. What's up, Doreen? Juck, when are you going to tell us what's up? I think, what the hell is it today? Tuesday? I think Monday. I think Monday we'll go over what's going on with changes and such. Rod says the cheapest ticket for the Grambling game, $79 in C-Deck. Ridiculous. Little Boy Gaming, excited for the new recruiting show. Thanks, buddy. It's going to be awesome. I think you guys are going to love it. Going to be a really good show with the real vet. What's up, Greenie? Dave said he heard one of the reasons that Signetti took the Indiana job was he looked at the schedule. I just could not get over the fact that this guy sitting here trying to talk tough while telling us the SEC's soft, while telling us I'm doing the exact same thing they are. What's up, Roger? Thanks for being here. New job. Haven't gotten to listen in a while. Congrats on the new job, buddy. Hope you're enjoying it. Greeny, my guy, loves the shirt. Man, let me tell you something. GV Art and Design, that's a Cleveland company. This one, not only great looking, really comfortable. What's up, Cookie Monster? I've always been of Rod's mind here that playing tough non-cons prepares you for conference play in the postseason. It just makes you better. And he doesn't understand how people don't think that playing those games don't benefit your team. It does. Pencil pushing nerd. Man, I pull that one out when I'm really angry. I got a video about the gray sleeves. I think it's like my first or second video I ever did on the show. And it's titled, the name of it is A Message to Ross Bjork. And I think that line is in there. Pencil pushing. I was fired up on that one. Matter of fact, I should pull that up. It's like a first, like maybe it was like my first 2 weeks. But you can tell like the background's different. I haven't added like the tables and stuff. Oh, speaking of which, I want to show you this, guys. So Costco, my wife got me this. This is a wine bottle, and it is etched in there and then hand painted. $53. It's Cabernet Sauvignon. That was fancy. But it's awesome. So I'm just going to keep this nice bottle here. I'm obviously not going to drink it, but really nice looking bottle. And this isn't printed. This is etched in the glass and painted. So really cool if you want to check that out at Costco. Jacob, what's up, Jacob? Chuck, what are our chances of three-peating in 26 if we win this season? Better than they are of two-peating? Better than they are of back-to-back? Because 26 is going to be even better. That's my opinion on that one. Yeah, I'm with Richie here. Petitti petitioning 8 and 4 teams to make the playoffs. Get these dudes out of the sport. And that's what they are. These are dudes that have infiltrated the sport. Unfortunately, our conferences have hired them to make them more money and then feign poor. Remember, don't forget that. They all got $50 million raises and then feigned poor that they got to pay out 20 in revenue sharing, telling us that they got to deface our stadiums and our fields and our uniforms with patches because they don't have any money. No, they don't care about the sport at all. Greg Sankey's not in the closet. Tony Petitti is in the closet. Sankey's out there doing his thing. I got another one of these energy drinks, guys, that my son left. These things make my face fiery. Weird. Richie says the gray sleeve was a great vid. That's when I knew you were my guy. Oh, so you saw that one. Boy, we're talking Richie Dubs is an OG. Signetti thinks he's Razor Ramon. Emily, also a fan of GV artwork. Great stuff. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, my friends. We are at 109. How about that? We did it. Hour and 10 minutes. We've done our time. It's been fun. I got myself a little worked up today. And, hold on. One more. What do you think about KJ 6'5", 265? Beast, baby. If he doesn't break out and play like he looks this year, all year, I'll be really disappointed, but I think he's going to. Really excited about him. He's got every opportunity to be a first-round pick, honestly. He's got it all. The best part, you could get him back for 26. That's the best part. And Bo Atkinson. Like 26 could be another one of those target years. So anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. And I'll talk to you later. Juck and Bucks out.